At issue tonight, the NDP says its deal with the Liberals is over.
Today, I notified the Prime Minister that I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement.
In response, the Prime Minister says he hopes an election is still a year away.
I really hope the NDP stays focused on how we can deliver for Canadians, as we have over the past years, rather than focusing on politics.
But the Conservatives are now calling on the NDP to bring down the government.
Commit today to voting for a carbon tax election at the earliest confidence vote in the House of Commons.
So what happens now? Who does this help or hurt? What does it mean for our next federal election? I'm Rosemary Barton. Happy to be back with you all, and especially happy to be back with a special at issue. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj joining us on a Wednesday. We were scheduled to hang out together on Thursday, but we're here together on a Wednesday because this is a big news. Chantal, give me your thoughts on how concerning this might be for the government.
That the NDP was going to do that seemed to me to be inevitable ever since the Teamsters were sent back to work in the way that they were. And what surprised me about today is how the government never saw that coming. And I've talked to a number of people that retreat of the cabinet back a couple of weeks ago, never focused on the possibility of an election before the year ran out. Confidence was expressed. It's as if the notion that collective bargaining was not central to the DNA of the NDP did not cross the minds of the Liberal government.
Why do you think it's happening now, Andrew? Is it because the rail stoppage triggered it? Is it the by-elections? Is it a whole bunch of things? Why is it happening now?
I think this was something the NDP was considering for some time. I think the only impact of the back to work thing was it gave them a pretext. It gave them an opportunity to say, well, this, the Liberals have moved so far left, but we're the real deal for left-wing voters. We're the ones who are really out for your interests. But this agreement was always very strange on its face. We can see it wasn't binding on anybody. It didn't really get the Liberals to do anything that they wouldn't have done anyway. It was really not intended to prop the Liberals up. It was intended to prop the NDP up. It was to give the NDP something to say when people came to them and said, are you going to support the government on this bill? Are you going to bring the government down? And they could say, well, we've got this agreement, and that way they wouldn't look weak and stupid. Well, okay, they've now decided to pull the plug because they want to keep their distance from the Liberals now with an election coming closer. They want to establish some distance. That's fine. But it does mean that they're going to get those questions coming at them now. They're going to be back on that side because one party or another, either the NDP or the Bloc has to support the Liberals to keep them in power. The Bloc, I don't think, will have any compunction about voting to bring the government down. They're riding high in the polls. The NDP is not, so they're back in the same dilemma they were in before the agreement was signed.
So where does it leave the Liberals then, Althea? In an unstable place, a worse place? What happens?
Well, I guess it depends who you mean by Liberals. The people who wanted Justin Trudeau out are probably feeling a little confused today. The Prime Minister actually seemed to have like a bounce in his step. If he was looking to have a smoother ride in caucus next week in Nanaimo, Jagmeet Singh basically gave it to him because the opportunity to get rid of the Prime Minister when there's this threat of the election hanging over you, that is pretty slim. I agree.
Good point. Yeah,
I agree with Andrew. My sense is the NDP had a take stock at the end of June and realized that everything they really wanted to accomplish, they had done. Like the anti-scab bill had passed the Senate. There really wasn't much left on that list. And the things that they wanted to get done that they couldn't get done, like pharmacare, they now feel actually that they have better leverage. So in a way, it's kind of a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the Prime Minister because he gets to continue on if that is indeed what he wants to do. And Jagmeet Singh, frankly, should have done this a year ago. And now he gets to try to uncouple himself from the Liberal-NDP coalition government as the Conservatives have framed it, and to redefine himself separately. It does pose a trickle when it comes to some votes. But I will just say that the opposition motion, so a pure confidence vote, doesn't need to happen until the end of November. So that's still quite a bit of runway that the government has and the NDP has to try to reframe things the way that they want to see themselves portrayed to Canadians.
Chantal?
except that we don't know what's going to happen in those by-elections on September 16th.
Yeah.
I mean, win-win until you lose. So the NDP desperately needs to keep that seat in Manitoba. The Liberals desperately need to keep that seat in Montreal. The Conservatives are, it's an easy for the Bloc and the Conservatives. If one of them wins one of those ridings, either of them will want to go in an election sooner rather than later. But I do agree that, I mean, there are 3 provincial elections coming. The NDP can't afford to not have its workers in BC and Saskatchewan working for the federal party. And they are committed elsewhere. And the Conservatives actually need their workers in Saskatchewan, BC, and New Brunswick. So this threat of a non-confidence motion when the House returns by the Conservatives, I'm not convinced that the Bloc or the NDP are going to go for it.
Where does it leave the Conservatives, though, Andrew? Because this was the play that Pierre Poilievre was doing in terms of the theater and posturing last week. This is presumably what he wanted. He wanted some to try and move the timeline up, at least, for the election.
Well, he might have preferred to keep Jagmeet Singh squirming a little longer. So Singh was certainly put in the spot by Poilievre's campaign on this, and he's got out from under that. As I say, I think this was in the NDP's long-term plans anyway, but they do not want to cause an election anytime soon. Just look at the fundraising numbers. The other 2 parties are so far ahead of them. They need some time to create distance. They need time to raise funds. So I don't think this has really advanced the election date really at all.
Does it change anything for the Conservatives, Althea, because they can no longer go after the NDP and the Liberals in the same way?
Oh, but I think that they still will. Like, it is a good thing for the Prime Minister, for the Conservative leader, because it probably means the Prime Minister is staying longer than he possibly might have. It is a good thing for Pierre Poilievre in the sense that he still gets to hang, the sellout Singh-branging over Jagmeet Singh, because the NDP will no doubt still be voting with the Liberals on some policy measures, maybe even on some money bills to get the stuff that it had asked for done. So I don't think it's a bad thing for the Conservatives. I don't think it means that we will have an election in October of 2025. I can see the election timetable moving up. I just do agree that the NDP need more months to redefine themselves. Right now, it's very clear people are voting for Pierre Poilievre as the option for change. He's done a really good job of dismissing Jagmeet Singh as an option for change, but they're not necessarily voting for Pierre Poilievre because of what that Conservative leader is offering. So this gives the NDP a chance to put something else in the window.
Chantal?
I still think those by-elections have become even more important. And it was curious to me today, 1, that the government did not see that coming in any way, shape, or form. And 2, that so many Liberals were asking themselves, does this mean Justin Trudeau will really lead us in an election or not? It's an interesting question, but it's not the main question that we're asking ourselves, which is, when is the election?
Right. Last word to you, Andrew, quickly.
The major wildcard in all this, I think, remains the U.S. election. If you want to know, what might change the course we're on now is if we get a Trump victory in the United States, then that's the kind of thing that could change the calculus for all the parties.
Okay, well, I'm delighted to have you all back, and I'm delighted that you all have to come back tomorrow because that's your regularly scheduled day. Thank you for weighing in on this. We'll have more to talk about tomorrow because Jagmeet Singh will have to answer some questions. Thank you all very much.